Hi, and welcome, Justin. Thank you so much for being willing to do this and allowing me to get to know you and your practice a little bit. Um, I want to say for anybody watching that you and I have not even really been introduced or anything in any way. We've communicated by email only, so this will be a interesting conversation, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'd love it if you could start us off with just telling us a little bit about yourself and why spiritual direction.
Sure. Thanks, Lisa, for inviting me. So my name is Justin Ferko. My pronouns are he, they, identify as non-binary. And I live in central Pennsylvania, the Chesapeake Bay watershed with my husband and our two dogs. Um, my spiritual direction practice is kind of multifaceted. I provide one-on-one group and supervision in terms of spiritual companioning. I currently teach in two formation programs for spiritual directors. One is the one I trained in, Oasis Ministries, which has a contemplative Christian lens, opening out into all wisdom paths, that interspiritual aspect. The other one is interspiritual and interfaith. The other part of my work is forest bathing. I'm a certified guide with the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy. So I do in-person and online walks with people, and it's kind of a group spiritual companioning with the third chair being Mother Earth, all more than human kin, and sometimes even the human kin on the walk. Why spiritual companioning? Um, I like in 2014, I told that I was in a Lutheran church. I said, I want to become a spiritual director. I want to help people connect to their higher power. And I went a long way around through seminary into chaplaincy. And then um, towards the end of my chaplaincy work, I did my training in spiritual companioning, which just deepened the way I could listen to my palliative care patients, even families coming in and their loved one experienced a trauma and was being cared for in the trauma bay. But personally, there are two aspects. One is when I came out at 17, I experienced like spiritual harm upon spiritual harm in my Roman Catholic family, and like the lack of support from priests or people seen as like leaders in that tradition. I didn't have any human support really. I went to the woods and I found support there with the trees. So there's a part of me that like kind of wants to be a support to LGBTQ plus people wherever they are in their life. And it comes from my own wounding in that way. And the other aspect is I've companioned a lot of my elderly relatives through hospice and end of life, and kind of being at that liminal space of life and death, liminal space of coming out and walking into your life in a more full way, are aspects of my practice. And then I focus my practice to mostly LGBTQ plus people or allies. And I really focus on supporting our community, especially now with the political, social environment we live in the US.
So, one of the first questions that popped into my head was, um, and I feel like this is a big question for a lot of people who do spiritual direction. Why spiritual direction rather than like therapy or counseling?
Um, and I've learned more about the gifts of therapy and counseling when from having been in it myself, like the awareness therapists do have about the spiritual dimensions of life. But for me, it's really about that connection to source, meaning higher power with people. Sometimes it's like creative ritual, helping them develop one for themselves. Um, and I know, and I can rest like this is an accompaniment to Western therapies. We can work together. It's a whole like care team approach, community of different healing modalities. So the why is just I so love the world of religions. I love the spiritual but not religious, independently spiritual, the pagan community. I see aspects of myself in that too, in my own kind of seeking and learning.
Yeah, and I think that question kind of goes along with, like so many people have, especially folks in the queer community, have spiritual trauma and or religious trauma in their experience. And I l- I think that that's a big reason why I like go, okay, so what's the difference between why you would go into spiritual direction rather um than counseling? And I really like what you had to say about um it was almost like you were when you were talking about working with people who were in hospice as coming out to death. Um and and I think that in practice with spiritual direction, there is a lot of that of coming out. Um, how do you think those two things kind of match up in your practice and in your own life, of being in the queer community as well as trying to be in a spiritual community as well?
Yeah, like thank you for that, like additional connection, like coming out to death for someone at the end of life. Um, I see that the continual process of walking through thresholds. I have many people who've been deconstructing the religion they grew up in due to church harm, of a Christian fundamentalist church harm. Um, Many people are beginning to claim that source of wisdom for themselves or multiple sources and finding how they navigate that because it can feel a little bit um, unwieldy or scary to my spiritual director talks with me about walking beyond the bounds of the village. And in like traditional cultures, those people are sacred, the ones who leave home. But it's also scary to leave home in the US dominant culture isn't about hospitality to those who have left home. And so spiritual companioning, it's like creating those little wayfaring inns of hospitality, like here, come in, sit, let's have tea, literally or metaphorically, and be in community together with me. I really trust my companion's journey. I trust their inner wisdom. And there's more maybe intuition I get to use, like dream work, imagery, um, body senses that I'm not sure if I had gone into a therapeutic mode, I would be able to do that because I was so limited even in chaplaincy. We had to assess spirituality and create care plans. And in spiritual companioning, it's different. It's walking so close that, you know, we invite silence, we invite more to come forward, even that, like Mark Nepo calls the soul like this whale that surfaces and then goes back down. Like that, like being present for that.
Yeah, and I almost think that spiritual direction is you have to have a pretty serious amount of humility in it because you're letting the seeker kind of lead sometimes, and you're often like almost feeling like you're following rather than leading, and yet there's still that power dynamics as well of you being the spiritual director, spiritual companion. What do you call yourself?
Yeah, I've gone through a whole cycle. The program I trained in, it was spiritual direction for spiritual guide. So I tried both of those. For me, spiritual direction sounds very Catholic, and that's the tradition I grew up in. So I've settled on spiritual companion, but I've had, like a business coach ask me, "Is this a dating website?" Because of the word companion. But yeah, maybe there's a sense of like an intimacy that's boundaried, and
Mhm.
it's not. I don't need something from my companion. So intimacy is there. And so spiritual companion is the one I'm currently on. I love that people break down the word sharing bread together. So
Yeah. So who is the main do you have like a group of people that I mean, like, I don't want to try and put people in boxes and labels, and yet I'm going to ask you to kind of label it. But is there a group of people that you find yourself working more with than others? And was that intentional, or did it just kind of flow that way?
Yeah, the group of the people who would be my clients or companionees, I've narrowed it to like LGBTQ plus community and allies. Um, Earth honoring. It's I put that all over my website, like and interspiritual. So I want people to know, like when you come to me, like I can actually walk with you and you're in different modalities. Like I can translate in myself or from lived experience and practice and multiple traditions. I've had some people come to me who were very much in like a particular stage of faith and a Christian lens, and it just wasn't going to work because I'm not the best support for you. And so I'll, refer to a colleague, do that warm handoff. Like, yeah, no, there's someone I think could really help and support you, but I know it's not me because of that would be a lot of supervision.
So um do I understand that correctly that you supervise new directors as well, or is and so do you
Yes.
do that in a group environment or individual?
At present, I do that one to one, individually, just based on interest.
Do you have a um and I'm kind of leading us in that direction a little bit because you're one of the you're one of the only people that I've talked to that kind of really do supervise other spiritual directors. So um do you have like a set like plan that you use with them, or is it similar to actual spiritual direction and that you kind of like let them lead?
It's kind of a hybrid of spiritual direction and a verbatim for folks who've done any kind of chaplaincy work. I created a verbatim using the work that reconnects spiral, which moves from gratitude through grief, to perceiving anew and going forth. And it's earth honoring, it's connected to any social justice or personal issue that might come up for the director. And what the session ends up being is a spiritual companioning because it's focused on the director.
Mm.
My perspective is everything that happens in the session is good learning, right? And even the session feeling like a total flop, that's important learning that you can bookmark it, use it the next time around. So yeah, I feel it's important to build up spiritual directors, and especially when they're students, and to resource them to help them understand when a referral might be important to make, when they're having bigger questions about their own path, life, and practice and impacting the session.
Is there like what are some of the big things like you said like if a session is not working, yeah, absolutely um we can pivot with that and learn from it. Um are there anything that you give your people that you work with like these are some top tips, like that you're willing to share with us that are not trade secrets?
Well, that first one, that everything is the learning opportunity. Um, And I took this from chaplaincy, my chaplain residency in 5 years in that field, the clinical method of learning, that we make an action, we take time to reflect on that action, and we go back out informed by our reflection. And that like spiral helps us get out of a feeling of guilt or regret, shame, whatever it is. Like it's okay, we're going to move forward together with this. Um, some of the other things are just that, awareness of our own belief systems, our own church harm, spiritual trauma, whatever it might be, and how those might come out in a session. Um, it can be for beginning spiritual directors. One thing is to notice, like, are you actually using your companionee's vocabulary for the sacred, or are you kind of forcing back in your word over top of theirs? Like, pull your word back.
Yeah.
Great, love it. And then use theirs. It doesn't impact your belief. They can be their own separate person, and it's okay that you have a different belief.
Yeah, great tip for that mirroring of, using their words. And I think being willing to use their words. Do I always have to call my higher power what I call my higher power? Am I comfortable using somebody else's words to have the same meaning? I think
Mhm.
that's really important. So, um, what if, like if you wanted to like let people know like really, hey, this is what I do, and this is why what I what I work with, and this is why it would be a good you might be a good match to work with me, or anything else that we're getting a little close to time. So anything that you would like to make sure that we kind of cover on this in this interview.
Sure. I'll offer something that I learned in my nature and forest therapy training. Um, we are called guides in that line of work. And the motto is that the guide opens the door and the forest is the therapist. The guide is invitational. I use that in my spiritual companioning. Like, I open the Zoom window, that's the door, right? Whatever happens next, is based on my deep trust that inner wisdom for you, your higher power, deeper power will be there, and supporting, and we'll be listening together for your higher power. The earth is immensely important. When possible, I do sessions outside with people in person and like someone the other day, a crow came to the window in our session, like, wait, what is crow saying? It matters that crow showed up in my mind, but maybe not for the seeker. It's okay. Um, yeah, so an invitation means like I can do reflective listening, but I also add in some things, right? Maybe offer, hey, these things are interweaving like this in my mind and heart. What are you thinking? What does that look like to you? Or what about a ritual for entering your retirement, for filing this form? And developing that together. So invitation is really an important aspect, but I think it's trauma informed as well. But definitely my practice personally, and then as a spiritual companion, is really reconnecting with the earth, inspired by Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer, with animacy, with reciprocity and gift. And I have long way to go, and work with my own teachers on that, and my own peer supervision, my own therapist, my spiritual director, so I can be the healthiest me in a session with seekers.
I love that you brought up Dr. Kimmer. I got the pleasure of meeting her in a Zoom meeting in a class one time, and she's just an amazing person. Um, I also love the visual of a guide being someone that opens the door to the forest. Um, that will definitely be one that sticks with me from this conversation. Thank you for that. All right, so we're getting close to the end, and I warned you there is a speed round. Um,
Okay.
so one or two words. Try not to think about it too hard, and just answer the question. Divine is.
Holy wisdom,
God is.
mother,
Spiritual direction is.
companioning,
My favorite book.
Braiding Sweetgrass by Romuald Kimmer.
Favorite dessert.
Plain cheesecake.
Nice. And you were the first person that didn't like stumble on that. You had it right there. Well, Justin, it has been a pleasure getting to know you a little bit and hearing about your practice. Thank you for all of the nuggets and words of wisdom that I gained from what you offered. One quick question. Is there a story behind the picture behind you? It's beautiful.
It's a find from Ross, but this is like a boat woman with flowers in the spirit of Diego Rivera. And when I came out, a Catholic priest told me I was going down the wrong branch of the river. And then this tells me, no, like even with rapids, which oxygenate water for the life in the water, there are flowers being brought down the river. And so she's my like riverboat woman who brings flowers down the rapids.
Awesome. Another beautiful story full of nature. Thank you again, Justin. I really appreciate you and
Thanks,
thank you so
Lisa.
much.